Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Kingston Committee of Adjustment meeting for December the 13th. As this is the first meeting of the committee year, we'll start with the election of officers. So I will start as committee clerk by asking if there are any nominations or volunteers for the position of chair. Mr. Babin.
Hi, I'd like to nominate Peter again to be chair of the committee. Thank you.
Excellent. Peter, do you accept?
I do accept. Thank you.
All right. And are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I will then call the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Seeing none, congratulations, Peter. You have been elected the chair. And now I will call for any nominations for the position of vice chair. Or any volunteers for the position of vice chair. Peter.
I'd nominate Vincent again.
Vincent, I see you've just joined us but are not yet on camera. Vincent, do you accept the nomination? You've unmuted Vincent, but we're not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Vincent, do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Excellent.
I'm just having trouble with my video. I'm just trying to.
No worries. All right. In that case, are there any other nominations or volunteers? Seeing none. So I will ask for actually a seconder on that as well to second that motion. I will see Jordan with that as the seconder. Call the question. All those in favor? And that passes. So Vincent Chinani is the vice chair, and I will now turn things over to the chair, Peter Skibo.
Great. Thanks very much, Derek. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our virtual Committee of Adjustment meeting. Now, on your screen, you'll see members of our Committee of Adjustment. Behind the scenes, we have many staff members with us this evening who've worked hard to make this meeting possible. Our Secretary Treasurer is Lindsay Stamen, and our clerk, as you've seen, is Derek O'Shea. They are hosting tonight's meeting and running the Zoom platform, so you will hear them chime in from time to time, and that's quite all right. Now, the agenda and the schedules for the meeting have been posted on Dash on the city's website. If you don't have those documents and you'd like to follow along, please feel free to access those now. So we have a heavy agenda this evening. We've got 11 agenda items, and I'd like to share with you the format that I'm going to be using to navigate through each application. I'm going to start by introducing the applicant and give them an opportunity to add anything further to the application. If you have nothing further to add, then just simply say so. Next, I'll turn it over to the committee members and ask them to question either the applicant or staff, after which I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Now, it's at this portion of the meeting, if you're a member of the public or anybody, and you wish to make a comment or you have a question in respect of an application, please raise your virtual hand in Zoom and we'll record your questions and comments. But it's important to note, don't expect an immediate answer to any of your comments or your questions, because it's only during the public portion of the meeting that we record your comments and questions. And it's after I close the public portion of the meeting, we go back to the applicant or staff to have those questions answered. And then I turn it back over to the committee. I call for somebody to make a motion. We deliberate on the application and then we vote. And then I just rinse and I repeat. It's the same format for every application this evening. Now, if you have a particular interest in any application this evening and you'd like to receive written notice of a decision, please send your name and address and the file number of the application to the Secretary Treasurer, Lindsay Stamen. Her email address is lsthamann@cityofkingston.ca. Be sure to include the file number of the application on there. And that's pretty much about it. So I'll now call back on Derek to confirm quorum. Derek?
Derek can confirm that there is quorum. We do have regrets from Blaine Fudge this evening. Also in attendance from staff, we have James Barr, the manager of development approvals, Lindsay Stamen, planner and secretary treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment, Lindsay Lambert, senior planner, Inji Kim, planner, Nikki Van Voot, planner, Tim Fisher, planner, Jason Partridge, planner, Ian Clendenning, senior planner, and Elizabeth Fawcett is a committee clerk and also tonight's meeting host. We have approximately a dozen applicants and agents in attendance, as well as 2 members of the public. And I turn it back to you.
Great. Thanks very much, Derek. Okay, so I'll now call the meeting to order at 5:35 p.m. and I'll turn to my committee and ask for somebody to move to approve the agenda. So moved by Greg and seconded by Jordan.
Peter will just
And-
double
oh, yes.
check to make sure the inclusion of the addendum.
That's right. There was an addendum that went out this afternoon, so we're looking for the approval of the agenda with the addendum. So you're okay with that, Greg? Okay, and it was Jordan? Okay. All in favor, raise your hands, and that's unanimously carried. Okay, thank you. And now we're looking for confirmation of the minutes of the November 15th meeting. Everybody's received a copy of them. You've had a chance to review them. Are there any, well, can I have a motion to accept the minutes? Okay, so moved by Paul and seconded by Somnath. Any discussion on this? None. Okay, so all in favor, raise your hands. And that is carried, unanimously carried. Okay, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, everybody's head is shaking, but mine, I actually have one. It's on item number 3 for 39 Rudd Avenue. The applicant is a real estate agent who is in the process of closing a real estate sale of a property I own. So I will be muting my camera and turning the meeting over to Vincent when we get to item number 3. Okay, there are no delegations this evening, and we have no requests for deferral, nor do we have any returning deferred items. So the first piece of new business we have this evening is item number A, which is an application for consent. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our first application tonight is for consent at 1264 Britt Street and 716 Glen Cove Street. The file numbers associated with the application are D10-027-2021 and D10-033-2021. Ingi Kim will give a brief presentation on behalf of the city for this application.
Great. And Ingi?
Thank you. Good evening, and through you, Mr. Chair. The consent applications before you today are submitted to create one new residential lot at 1264 Britt and 716 Glen Cove Street for the future single-family dwelling development. Next slide, please. So these consent applications proceeded through the delegated authority process, and during the public notification period, we received public comments, and therefore the file has been referred to the Committee of Adjustment for your consideration. A new public notice was mailed and the new signage was posted on site. Next slide, please. The subject properties are located on the east side of Glen Cove Street and the north side of Breed Street, and is situated within the neighborhood known as Bay Ridge West. The subject properties are designated residential in the official plan and zoned R1-3 in zoning bylaw 76-26. The surrounding land use, as you see on the picture on the slide, is predominantly low density residential. Next slide, please. To give a quick overview, the applicant is seeking to create a new residential lot on the subject properties with 2 consent applications. So the first application will sever a portion of the land at 1264 Britt Street, and the second application will sever a portion of the land at 716 Glen Cove and will be merged with the severed lot at 1264 Britt Street. Existing single-family dwellings will remain on the retained parcels, and both retained parcels and newly created lot will comply with the minimum lot area and lot frontage required under the zoning bylaw. Next slide, please. So the size of the severed and the retained parcels are comparable to the existing residential lots in the area. Any future development on site will be subject to zoning provisions, including minimum front yard depth, rear yard depth, and side yard width. Finally, the proposed development will have no negative impact on the existing streetscape, as the retained parcels will maintain their existing accesses. Any new and or altered accesses to the property will require an entranceway permit. Next slide, please. With respect to public consultation, a public notice sign was posted, a notice was mailed, and notification was made available in the Kingston Week Standard. As previously mentioned, these applications are moved up for your consideration as public comments were made during the delegated authority process. And a summary of public comments received and staff responses were included in the staff report for your consideration. Next slide, please. In conclusion, this application is being recommended for approval to allow the creation of one new residential lot. The proposal maintains the general intent and purpose of both official plan and zoning bylaw. And the proposal will improve the function of the underutilized portion of the site and represents good land use planning. With that, thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much for that. So at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourselves by name and address for our record, please.
Hello, my name is Mark Labrie. I live at 1264 Britt Street.
Okay, and you are actually the owner.
Yes, I'm the owner of both properties.
Okay, thanks very much for being here. Is there anything further you want to add to the application this evening?
No, I worked hard to make sure it was within the rules of the city.
Very good. Okay, so I'll now turn it over to our committee members. Committee members, do you have any questions for Mr. Labrie or staff?
Is it possible to own two properties neighboring each other and not have title merge here?
Good question. Yeah. James?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The Planning Act was changed in 1975, so once a consent, always a consent is the rules. It's the same whether you own a plan, two properties next to each other in a plan of subdivision, or whether you create one via consent. But since that change was made under the Planning Act, you can own a property that's created through the consent process under the Planning Act next to another property you own, and they won't merge. Only historic properties that were created prior to that change in the Planning Act still have the ability to merge on title with each other if they're held in common ownership.
And Mr. Bard, does that also pertain then to a third property that's going to be created here?
That's correct. So both of these properties will not merge with the newly created property because they have all been party to the application of the Planning Act. So once a consent, always a consent here.
Thank you, sir.
Good. Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? I see none. So I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 1264 Britt Street and 716 Glen Cove Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And do we have anybody with us this evening who wishes to speak to the application for Britt Street and Glen Cove Street? Raise your virtual hand. My third and final call. Is anybody with us this evening to speak to the application for Britt Street and Glen Cove Street? Raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Paul and seconded by Somnath. Any discussion? Okay, so all in favor, raise your physical hands. And that is unanimously carried. Thanks very much. Okay, the next application we have this evening is number 8B, which is an application for minor variance. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an application for minor variance, file number D13064-2021 at 1451 Westbrook Road. Ingi Kim will give the presentation on behalf of the city for this application as well.
Very good, thank you.
Through you again, Mr. Chair. This application is for a minor variance at 1451 Westbrook Road. The purpose of the application is to construct a detached accessory building in the rear yard. The proposed use for the development is a personal garage and a workshop. The next slide, please. The proposed For the proposed development, the applicant is seeking a variance of 5 feet in height for the maximum height allowed for the accessory buildings under the zoning bylaw 76-26, which is 15 feet. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated rural and environmental protection area in the official plan and zoned general agricultural A2 in zoning bylaw number 76-26. The property abuts Westbrook Road on the northeast, vacant lands to the east, west, and south, and Kingston Thousand Islands Sports Complex to the northwest. The site is currently developed with a single family dwelling with an attached private garage, a barn in the rear yard, and a shed in the side yard. Next slide, please. The building is located in the middle of the lot and in the northern portion of the lot, and is sufficiently set back from all neighboring uses. The increased height will not impact the streetscape or neighboring uses, as a proposed structure is located 24 meters away from Westbrook Road. And the closest residential dwelling is approximately 170 meters away from the location of the proposed development. Next slide, please. The purpose and intent of a maximum accessory building height is to ensure that they do not dominate a property and do not have any negative impacts on the abutting properties. This site is sufficiently large and the building is well set back from neighboring properties and lot lines, reducing its overall impact on the surrounding area. Next slide, please. With respect to public consultation, a public notice sign was posted, a notice was mailed to 14 property owners, and notification was made available in the Kingston Week Standard. To date, no public comments have been received. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the application is being recommended for approval to allow the construction of a new detached accessory building in the rear yard. The requested variance maintains the general intent and purpose of both official plan and zoning bylaw. Further, the requested variance is minor in nature, and the proposed accessory building will improve the function of the existing residential use on the site. Again, thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions regarding this application.
Great, thank you very much for that. So at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourselves by name and address, please.
It's Rod Stokes. I'm the agent for the owners, and my address is 324 Renda Street, Kingston.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stokes. Is there anything further you want to add to the application?
No, I think it's been covered quite well, but if there are any questions, I'd be glad to address them.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so I'll ask, call on the committee members. Do you have any questions of either the applicant or staff?
If I may.
Yes, Jordan. Yeah.
Mr. Stokes, the sportsplex just down the road, it's a lot higher than 20 feet, right? In terms of the height of the structure?
Most definitely. I honestly don't have the height of it, of what that would be, but definitely I'm guessing it probably be as much as twice as high.
I can think of the area. So that I'm just curious because I don't think it'll be an eyesore at all. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 1451 Westbrook Road? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. Is anybody with us this evening to speak to the application for 1451 Westbrook Avenue? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And my third and final call, is anybody with us this evening to speak to the application for Westbrook Road? Please raise your virtual hand. In Zoom, I see none, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Jordan and seconded by Greg. Any discussion? Okay, so all in favor, raise your physical hand, and that's unanimously carried. Thank you. Okay, our next application, I'm going to declare a conflict here and turn this over to Vincent. So I'm just going to mute my camera and mic here.
Hello, can you hear me? Yep. Okay, good. All right, so the next application is letter C, and it's an application for minor variance for 139 or 39 Rudd Avenue. And Lindsay, can you have us introduce into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Vice Chair, This is an application for minor variance at 39 Rudd Avenue. The file number is D13065-2021. Ingi Kim is also the planner assigned to this application.
Good evening again for the final time this evening for me, through you, Vice Chair. This application is for a minor variance at 39 Rudd Avenue. The purpose of this application is to expand the existing attached garage to accommodate 2 vehicles. Next slide, please. In order to expand the garage, the applicant is seeking a variance of 1.66 meters reduction to the minimum interior side yard width, which is 2.5 meters. Next slide, please. The subject property is designated rural and environmental protection area in the official plan and zoned residential type 1 R1 in zoning bylaw number 32-74. The property abuts Rudd Avenue to the northwest, single family dwellings to the west and northeast, and St. Lawrence River to the southeast. Next slide, please. So the proposed expansion will take place on the west side of the existing house, as you see on the site plan on the slide. It is anticipated that the proposed development will have no impact on the existing streetscape as it complies with the front yard setback of 7.5 meters, and it will continue to be accessed through an existing driveway. Additionally, the impact of the reduced side yard will be minimum as the front corner of the building complies with the required side yard width of 2.5 meters. The minor variance is triggered due to the orientation of the existing house not being parallel to the lot lines, resulting in reduced side yard width for the expanded building, especially at the back left corner of the expanded garage. Next slide, please. The scale and design of the proposed development will be compatible with surrounding uses in terms of overlook or loss of privacy. No adverse effects are anticipated. There are no windows proposed on the west side of the building. Additionally, there are existing vegetation, which will provide additional screening to the abutting property. Next slide, please. With respect to public consultation, a public notice sign was posted, a notice was mailed to 18 property owners, and notification was made available in the Kingston Week Standard. To date, no public comments have been received for this application. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the application is being recommended for approval to allow the expansion of the existing attached garage in order to accommodate 2 vehicles. The requested variance maintains the general intent and purpose of both official plan and zoning bylaw. Further, the requested variance is minor in nature and the proposed development represents good land use planning and will improve the function of the existing residential use on the site. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I would like to call on the applicant and or their agent to identify themselves by name and address.
Hi, Ron Voskamp, I'm the homeowner. Address is 39 Rudd Avenue.
Do you have anything to add to the application?
I thought NG did a great job presenting the information.
Okay, thank you. So now, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or agent?
If I may, Mr. Vice Chair.
Yep.
So my calculation here, 1.66 meters means it's a reduction to 5'5" here. Are we losing any vegetation, any trees in the addition here with this garage?
There's a couple of trees that have already been severely pruned, I guess, because they've been kind of growing into our neighbor's house.
Okay. But you still got other trees on the side there that's going to give you some coverage.
There is, exactly, especially more towards the road.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions by committee members? Seeing as none. So now I will open the public portion of the meeting and ask if there are any members of the public who wish to speak on application 39 Rudd Avenue. Is there anybody in the public wishing to speak to 39 Red Avenue? Second time, anyone wishing to speak to 39 Red Avenue, please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And a final time, does anybody wish to speak to 39 Red Avenue? Please raise your hand in Zoom. Seeing as none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting. Now I'll come back to the applicant and our staff to answer any questions, which there are none. And so committee members, do you have any other questions for the agent, or kind of messing this up, I think. All right, so I will turn the committee for a motion. Moved by Jordan, seconded by Paul. Any discussion? No, all in favor? And it passes unanimously. Peter, you can come back.
Okay. I'm back. All right, thanks. Our next application is number D, which is an application for a minor variance. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Next is an application for minor variance at 849 Roshan Drive, file number D13-061-2021. Nikki Van Boot is the planner assigned to this application.
Great. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, staff, and members of the public. The minor variance application presented before you is for 849 Roshan Drive. The purpose and effect of this application is to construct a new 44.74 square meter elevated deck, which will be located at the rear of the existing residential single detached home. Next slide, please. So in order to facilitate the proposed development, the applicant is seeking a variance of 14.74 square meters to increase the maximum permitted deck size for a structure more than 1.2 meters above finished grade from 30 square meters to 44.74 square meters. Next slide, please. The property is currently developed with a one-story single detached dwelling and an attached garage within a residential community in the west end of Kingston, near the intersection of Stonehenge Street and Roshan Drive and close to Westbrook Meadows Park. The subject site is designated as residential and adjacent to an environmental protection area in the official plan and is zoned special R1-58 under zoning bylaw 76-26. The property abuts a vacant residential lot to the north, single-family detached dwellings to the south and east, and a parcel zoned as open space to the west. Next slide, please. This is the site plan for the subject property. The applicant is proposing to construct the 44.74 square meter deck along the rear of the existing single-family house. The minor variance is ultimately triggered due to the proposed deck height of approximately 10 feet, which requires more prescriptive measures to ensure overlook and privacy concerns are mitigated. The subject property can utilize multiple existing site characteristics to mitigate potential overlook concerns into nearby yards, as the land to the west are zoned open space and EPA, and the existing property exceeds the required side yard setbacks, interior side yard setbacks, and is abutting the vacant residential lot to the north, as well as the residential lot to the south. It is anticipated that the proposed development will have no impact on the existing streetscape as it is located in the rear of the building. Next slide, please. The proposed rear yard deck provides new opportunity for growth and investment within Kingston in a manner that would ensure compatible development and land use. The deck will result in development that is consistent with the built form of existing rear yard decks found in nearby residential properties located along Roshan Drive. And the scale and design of the proposed development appears to be compatible with surrounding uses. Next slide, please. With respect to public consultation, signs were posted on the subject site 10 days in advance of the meeting. Notices were sent by mail to a total of 20 property owners, and a courtesy notice was placed in the Kingston Whig Standard. And to date, no public comments have been received. Next slide, please. With respect to our recommendation, the requested variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, and as such, the proposed application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act. Approval of this application will permit the construction of an elevated deck at the rear of the existing single detached dwelling. Thank you for your time, and that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you very much. So at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address for the record, please. So I do see that we have a Mr. Robinson in the house. Do you know, Nikki, is he going to be speaking to this?
He was prepared to speak. I'm not
Yes,
sure. Yeah.
I'm here and my audio is not muted, so.
Okay, we can hear you. Thanks, Mr. Robinson.
Okay.
Is there anything further you wish to add to the application this evening?
No, not really, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff?
If I may.
Yes, Jordan?
Mr. Robinson, we didn't receive any communication from any neighbors. Can you confirm your neighbors are good with this?
Yes, well, I don't have an immediate neighbor. The lot next door is still vacant, not built on.
Right.
I haven't had any neighbor approach me since the sign was put up. I've been teased a little by some of the neighbors, but no, there's everybody seems quite comfortable with it. The street itself, I mean, we've all got walkout basements, we've all got decks of some sort or another. So it's quite in keeping with everyone else.
I took a look at it. It looks very comparable to the others. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public here this evening who wish to speak to the application for 849 Roshan Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. Is anybody with us this evening to speak to the application for Roshan Drive? Please raise your virtual hand. And my third and final call, do we have anybody with us this evening to speak to the application for 849 Roshan Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And I'm seeing none, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Jordan and seconded by Vincent. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hand, and that's unanimously carried. Thanks, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, our next application is item number 8E, which is an application for minor variance. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an application for minor variance at 464 Berry Street, file number D13-006-2021. Tim Fisher will give the presentation for this application.
Thank you. Tim?
Hello, through you there, Mr. Chair. There we go. So we have a minor variance application here for 464 Berry Street. The variance is requested to, hold on a second here, I forgot my camera. There we go. So the minor variance application is requested in order to remove the existing 3/4 story above the ground floor and construct a full second story with living space in the attic. A 2.5 story rear addition is also proposed. The variances are requested to recognize the second story to be constructed on the existing building footprint and to recognize proposed dormers on the new roof. The end result will be a 2.5 story single family dwelling containing a total of 3 bedrooms. Next slide, please. So the subject site is located at 464 Berry Street. The site has approximately 323 square meters in area and approximately 9.9 meters of frontage on the west side of Berry Street. The subject property is designated residential in the official plan and zoned 1 family dwelling and 2 family dwelling A zone in zoning bylaw number 8499. The site is developed with a 1 3/4 story single family dwelling containing 3 bedrooms. The subject property is located in a residential neighborhood consisting of a mixture of 1 and 2 story or 1 and 2.5 story dwellings. The subject property is adjacent to a 2.5-story dwelling to the north, a 2-story dwelling to the east, a 2-story dwelling to the south, and a 2.5-story dwelling to the west. Next slide, please. So the requested variances here, they're asking for a reduction in the minimum side yard and the minimum aggregate side yard, and that is for recognizing the existing structure and able to build on the existing footprint and build up from the existing footprint. So, and then there's 3 additional variances here for the proposed dormers on the new roof line. So the intent of the dormer provisions is to avoid large shed-like dormers, which will result in the modification of the majority of the roof to accommodate living space in the attic. The height of the proposed new roof will provide adequate height for living space. 3 dormers are proposed on the roof, which are intended to provide natural light and ventilation in the attic space. The dormer located on the north side will have no windows and is requested in order to provide ceiling height in order to accommodate the internal stairway and landing. The dormer requires a variance from the setback from the end of the roof. The dormer cannot be relocated or shrunk in size as a result of the location of the internal stairway. The second dormer is located on the south roof line, which complies with the dormer provisions. The dormer will provide natural light and ventilation to the office area. Third dormer is located on the west roof line and will provide ventilation and natural light to the den and attic. The roof line is approximately 7.3 meters in width. However, the roof line tapers smaller to 4.5 meters where the dormer is located. Therefore, the width of the dormer is based on the 4.5 meter width area. This permits a dormer width of 2.7 meters. However, the applicant proposes a width of 4.6 meters, which requires the variance. As a result of the reduced width in the roof, the additional variance, an additional variance is required to reduce the setback of the dormer from the end of the roof. The dormer would comply with the provisions of the 7.3 meter width of the roof. However, the tapered portion obviously requires measurement to be taken from the tapered portion of the roof. So a variance is therefore requested to reduce the setback from the end of the roof to 0.4 meters for either side of that dormer. Next slide here, please. As we can see the site plan, the variance is considered minor as the proposed additions will comply with the maximum height of the dwelling and maximum building depth provision in the A zone, and will be similar in scale and design of other 2.5-story dwellings along Berry Street and within the residential neighborhood. The proposal and its requested variances are not anticipated to have any negative impacts on continued use or privacy of the abutting residential uses. The development will not result in any negative impacts on the character of the neighborhood or to the streetscape. Can you change slide? Here we see the front and rear elevations. The front elevation, you can see on the left-hand side, the location of the south dormer, and on the right-hand side, the northern dormer. And also on the rear elevation, you can see the western dormer, and also the rear dormer there, which is 15 feet in width. Next slide. Okay, and here we see the left elevation and the right elevation showing the dormers themselves as well. Next slide. There we go. So here we show the main floor and second floor plans. As you can see, the second floor is going to be built using the existing footprint, which is mirroring obviously the main floor. Next slide, please. And the floor plan for the attic space. And as you can see, the need for the dormers would provide the natural light and airflow for the areas within the attic space. So the proposed 2.5-story dwelling is similar to the existing massing and character and architecture in the residential neighborhood. The rear addition will provide common living space and living room for the residential use, and will provide access to the rear yard through a deck and sliding doors along the rear wall. The existing dwelling contains a maximum of 3 bedrooms. The proposed addition will maintain the 3 bedrooms on the second story. However, as a result of the rear addition, a master bedroom suite will be created within the new second story, while the remaining second floor will be renovated to provide 2 bedrooms, an updated washroom, a laundry room, and a stairway leading to the attic space. A crawl space is proposed within the rear addition. Therefore, additional living space is proposed within the attic space. The attic will provide an office area, recreation room, and den. The proposed dormers will obviously provide natural light and ventilation to the attic space. Next slide there, please. So signage was posted on the property and notice was mailed to 37 property owners 10 days prior to the meeting. And also a courtesy notice was placed in Kingston Lake Standard. Next slide, please. For our recommendation, the requested variances maintain the general intent and purpose of both the City of Kingston official plan and zoning bylaw number 8499. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure. And the requested variances are minor in nature. As such, the proposed application meets all 4 tests under subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act, and the application is being recommended for approval subject to the proposed conditions. Approval of this application will provide additional living space to an existing single detached dwelling and is anticipated to have no negative impacts on the abutting residential uses or their continued use and function of their lots. I will leave this in your hands.
Very good. Thanks very much, Tim. So at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address, please.
Hi, this is Aaron McGregor, owner of 464 Berry Street.
Great. Dr. McGregor, is there anything further you wish to add to the application?
No, there's nothing more to add. Thank you.
Okay, so committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? And Paul?
Mr. Chair, this is a question to staff. I know they did the posting and the wig and whatnot, but I wasn't clear if there was any comments from the community around this property. Thank you.
Yes, through Mr. Chair. Yes, I did forget to mention that. No, we did not receive any public input in regards to this application.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff or the applicant? No, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 464 Berry Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And if we have any members of the public who wish to speak to the application for 464 Berry Street, please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And my third and final call is, do we have anybody with us this evening who wishes to speak to the application for 464 Berry Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Greg and seconded by Paul. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hand, and that's unanimously carried. Thanks. All right, so our next application is number 8F, which is an application for a minor variance. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for minor variance at 140 Collingwood Street, file number D13060-2021. Tim Fisher is also assigned to this application.
Great, thanks.
Okay, through you there, Mr. Chair. This is a minor variance application for 140 Collingwood Street. The applicant is proposing to increase the maximum building depth requirement in the A zone in zoning bylaw 8499 to permit the construction of a 21 square meter 4-season room at the rear of the existing one-story single-family dwelling. Next slide, please. The subject property at 140 Collingwood Street has a lot area of approximately 585 square meters with approximately 14.5 meters of road frontage on Collingwood Street. The property is designated residential in the official plan and zoned 1 and 2 family dwelling A zone in zoning bylaw number 8499. The property is developed with a 1-story single detached dwelling with its road access from Collingwood Street. The site is located in a residential neighborhood, which consists of a mixture of single detached dwellings, semi-detached, duplex, and multiple family dwellings. Queen's University is located 1 block to the east of the subject property, and the former St. Mary's on the Lake is approximately 4 blocks to the west. Next slide, please. As I stated, the applicant is requesting a variance to the maximum permitted residential building depth. The requirement is 15 meters, and they are proposing 18 meters, which is a variance of 3 meters. Next slide, please. The variance is considered minor as the development is in keeping with the scale and design of the existing residential development in the neighborhood. The proposal is not anticipated to have any negative impacts on the abutting residential uses. The sunroom is located in the rear yard and will not be visible from the street. Therefore, it will not have any impacts on the streetscape or character of the neighborhood. The subject property is developed with a 1-story single detached dwelling. The proposed 21 square meter 4-season sunroom at the rear of the dwelling will provide additional living space to the residential use. The proposal will not result in any new units or bedrooms. The sunroom is located at the rear of the dwelling and will not be seen from the street. A rear yard will be maintained for outdoor amenity space. The height of the sunroom will not exceed the height of the existing dwelling and will provide a similar roof pitch as the dwelling itself. The increase in residential building depth will be in keeping with the scale and building depth of other residential development in the neighborhood. Approval of the variance will not result in the increase of the building depth for the entire lot. The variance is only applied to the building depth and location of the proposed sunroom only. Any further development on the subject property is to comply with the performance standards of the zoning bylaw. Next slide there, please. As we can see here, the area of the existing house and the location of the proposed sunroom at the rear. Next slide. And here they provided us with elevations showing the roof line. And as you can see at the bottom left, the rear elevation, you can see that the roof line of the sunroom matches the pitch and roof line of the existing house. And in the left side elevation, as you can see in the middle, you can tell that the sunroom will not be any higher than the existing roof line of the structure and won't be seen from the street. Next slide. So signage was posted on the property and a public notice was mailed to all property owners within 60-meter radius of the property, and approximately 45 property owners received the letter. To date, we received no public input in regards to this application. Next slide, please. So the requested variance maintains the general intent and purpose of both the City of Kingston official plan and zoning bylaw. The proposal is desirable and appropriate development or use of the land. And the requested variance is minor in nature. As such, the proposed application meets all 4 tests under subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act, and the application is being recommended for approval subject to the proposed conditions. Approval of this application will permit the construction of the 21 square meter 4-season room to be constructed at the rear of the existing single-family dwelling, which will provide them with additional living space. I will leave this in your hands.
Great. Thanks very much, Tim. So at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address, please.
Hi, this is Joe Ruffalo from KB Homes. It's 120 Railway Street, Kingston, Ontario. I'm the agent.
Thanks very much. And is there anything further you want to add to the application we have before us?
No, I think Tim was very detailed in it. It's quite good. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks. Okay. So committee members, do you have any questions for Mr. Ruffalo or for staff?
Quick question.
Yeah, it's Jordan.
I was just wondering, from the back of the sunroom to the rear yard property line, am I correct in thinking that's 33 feet, as in it's a pretty big lot?
Yes, you are correct.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or for staff? I see none. So I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 140 Collingwood Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And is anybody with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 140 Collingwood Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And my third and final call, do we have anybody with us this evening who wishes to speak to the application for 140 Collingwood Street? Please raise your virtual hand. I see none, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Vincent and seconded by Paul. Any discussion? So none, so I'll call for a vote. All in favor, raise your hand. And that's unanimously carried. Thank you. All right, our next application is 8G, which is an application for minor variance. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for minor variance at 950 Centennial Drive, file number D13068-2021. Lindsay Lambert is assigned to this application.
Thanks. Lindsay?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, staff, and members of the public. The purpose and effect of this minor variance application for 950 Centennial Drive is to obtain zoning relief from the minimum rear yard and minimum privacy yards of the C5-7 zone of zoning bylaw 76-26. This is to facilitate a phase 2 addition to the existing retirement residence, and also for a future consent application for a phase 3 development on the eastern side of the property. Next slide, please. Subject property is located on the east side of Centennial Drive, south of Princess Street. The site is developed with an existing 7-story retirement residence with 165 units. A phase 2 addition is proposed to the existing building that is to match the existing height and setback to the existing residential neighborhood to the south. Phase 2 is proposed to contain 86 units with underground parking. The subject lands are designated arterial commercial in the official plan and are zoned C5-7 in zoning bylaw 76-26. Next slide, please. In order to facilitate the phase 2 addition and future consent application, the applicant is seeking zoning relief from the minimum rear yard setback and minimum privacy yards for 2 ground floor units, as detailed on this slide. Next slide, please. The concept plan includes the footprint of the proposed phase 2 addition, as well as the proposed lot line that will be submitted with a future consent application to create a separate parcel from phases 1 and 2. The application facilitates additional compact residential intensification on an underutilized parcel within the urban boundary and within a corridor where such infill and redevelopment is encouraged. The proposed phase 2 addition is the subject of an active application for site plan control modification. Next slide, please. Notice of the subject application has been provided in accordance with the Planning Act, and a courtesy notice was placed in the Kingston Whig Standard. To date, staff have received one piece of correspondence, and that has been included in this evening's addendum. The piece of correspondence expresses concern with the proposed setback of the phase 2 addition and its implications for construction impacts on the neighboring residential subdivision. Staff would like to note that the interior side yard is not part of the application before you this evening. The proposed addition exceeds the minimum 15-meter interior side yard of the C5-7 zone. Staff consider the concerns to be addressed as they are not related to the zoning relief sought through the subject application. Next slide, please. In summary, the application does meet all 4 tests under subsection 45(1) of the Planning Act. Approval of the application will facilitate further residential intensification in a compact form on an underutilized service property within the city's urban boundary in a manner that achieves compatibility with adjacent properties and meets the functional needs of future and current residents. In conclusion, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the proposed standard conditions included in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lindsay. At this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address for the record, please.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Hugo Leclerc. I am a planner with Vacant Planning and Design. I am appearing this evening on behalf of the applicant. I note that the applicant's representative is here, as is the architect. So I will just say that I have nothing to add to the staff report or recommendation, and we agree with the recommendation. If there are any questions from this committee or the public, I will do my best to answer them, and if needed, I can call on other representatives to assist. Thank you.
Very, very good. Thanks for that. So committee members, do you have any questions for Mr. Leclerc and Mr. Leclerc or any of staff?
If I may.
Yes, Jordan.
The concern voiced by the letter that was received, that doesn't actually pertain to the minor variance before the committee tonight, does it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I may, it appears that the commenter understood the reduction in the rear yard setback to apply to the southern property line on this site. That's not the case. When Ms. Lambert discussed the application earlier, she mentioned the interior side lot line. That is the southern property line. The reduced rear yard setback that's proposed would pertain to the future lot line, which would separate phases 2 and 3, which is to the east of the proposed building and would have no impact on the properties to the south.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant or their agent or staff? I just had one comment, and it goes back to Mr. Comerford's letter, who's in opposition to this. And I realize that he may have misunderstood the setbacks. He raises another concern that's, although not related to the variance, I wonder if maybe staff could comment on it. It's just with respect to, I guess he believes there may be blasting required to dig a hole, or whether they use jackhammers, I don't know. It just was, he had a comment there. Is the city going to pay for any cracks in foundations? What do we have to say on that? Maybe Lindsay, I don't know, can you comment on that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, such construction impacts aren't really considered through the Planning Act process. They're not really pertinent to the application at hand before you this evening. Okay. Through the construction process, the contractors hired by the owner would have responsibilities to ensure no negative impacts on surrounding properties and would have appropriate insurance to account for that.
Good. Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thanks very much. Any other questions for applicant or staff? Okay, so at this point, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 950 Centennial Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And do we have anybody with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 950 Centennial Drive? Please raise your virtual hand. I'm not seeing any, but I'll call one more time. Is anybody here wishing to speak to the application for 950 Centennial Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Jordan and seconded by Paul. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your physical hand, and that's unanimously carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next application we have is number 8H, which is an application for minor variance. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an application for minor variance at 853 Development Drive, file number D13066-2021. Jason Partridge will give the presentation for this application.
Great, thanks.
Good evening, through you, Mr. Chair. This is a minor variance application for 853 Development Drive, file number D13066-2021. Next slide, please. The purpose and effect of the minor variance application is to request relief from the requirements regarding the minimum setback from the rear lot line to build a one-story, three-season enclosed sunroom within the side yard of the property. The resulting new three-season enclosed sunroom will be 13.94 square meters in size and complies with all minimum side yard height and landscape open space requirements. Next slide, please. So the minor variance they're requesting is for the rear setback. The requirement is 7.62 meters. The proposal is 5 meters even, and the variance requested is 2.62 meters. Next slide, please. So the property at 853 Development Drive is developed as a single-family dwelling use, and the future use is a single-family dwelling use. It's at the corner of Development and Boxwood. And next slide, please. So this is the site plan showing the proposed sunroom in the top left-hand corner in the side yard of the property. And this is a corner lot. So there is an exterior and a front yard lot line. So the front lot line, if you can go back actually to the previous slide, thanks. So the front lot line is on Boxwood and the exterior lot line is on Development Drive. The Boxwood front lot line is the smaller lot line of both of them, of the exterior lot line, making the rear yard adjacent to 849 Development Drive and the side yard adjacent to 307 Boxwood. Okay, so next slide after that. So this just shows the one-story enclosed three-season sunroom that would be located in the side yard of the property. Next slide, please. The requested variance maintains the general intent and purpose of the City of Kingston official plan and zoning bylaw 7626. The proposal is desirable for the appropriate development or use of land, building, or structure, and the requested variance is minor in nature. As such, the proposal application meets all 4 tests under subject 45(1) of the Planning Act, and an application is being recommended for approval subject to the proposed conditions. Approval of this application will allow for the construction of a one-story, three-season enclosed sunroom within the side yard of the property. As of today, we've received 1 letter in support from the public in support of the application, and it was one of the neighbors, and that was included in the addendum sent out by Derek today as well. That's everything. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Jason. Okay, at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address for our record, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the Committee of Adjustment. My name is Syed Ahmed, and I'm representing Sunlight Sunroom, Lifestyle Sunroom, sorry. And the property address is 853 Development Drive.
Good. And is there anything further you want to add to the application Mr. Partridge described today?
Not at all. Everything
Okay.
was great presentation. I really appreciate it.
Good. Thank you. All right, committee members, do you have any questions for the agent or for staff? I see none, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 853 Development Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And do we have anybody with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 853 Development Drive? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And my third and final call, is anybody with us this evening who wishes to speak to the application for 853 Development Drive? Please raise your virtual hand. And I see none, so I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Somnath and seconded by Jordan. Any discussion? None, so all in favor, raise your physical hand. And that is unanimously carried. All right, thanks very much.
Thank you. Really.
Mr. Chair, Somnath here. I would like to be excused from the next agenda item on account of the fact that I know the applicant.
Okay, that's fine. So so noted. If you just want to mute your video. Okay, so the next item is number 8I, which is an application for permission. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is an application for permission at 3441 Princess Street. The file number is D13055-2021, and I will give the presentation for this one.
Very good.
Okay, so the purpose of this application is to convert the existing trucking facility and office building into a professional office use and to establish 3 new parking spaces, including a new driveway off of Princess Street. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the key map and the neighborhood context map. As you can see, this property has an irregular shape. And I'll just note that the property includes the existing driveway that's located between 3453 and 3451 Princess Street. The rear building is an existing non-conforming trucking facility, which includes office space, and the front building is an existing non-conforming 3-unit dwelling. The property is zoned R1 residential. Next slide, please. The applicant is requesting permission for 2 aspects of their proposed development. The first is to increase the amount of uncovered parking area. And the second is to expand the office use throughout the entire rear building, which includes additional floor area proposed in a taller portion of the existing building. Next slide, please. I've highlighted the site plan here to show the 2 impacted areas. The yellow shows the increased parking area. So these are the 3 proposed parking spaces for the residential use at the front of the property. The green is just an outline of the existing footprint of the rear building. That footprint is not proposed to be expanded, and no height will be added to the building. All development of the rear building will take place within the existing footprint and under the existing roof. Next slide, please. These are the elevations of the existing rear building. As I've noted, no exterior changes are proposed as part of the conversion to professional office use. Next slide, please. 2 signs were posted on the property. Notice was mailed and a courtesy ad was placed in the WIG standard. No public comments have been received for this application. I'll also note that this property was subject to a Committee of Adjustment application in 2002. That application allowed the previous owners to build an addition on the rear building for an office use that was associated with the trucking facility. And through that application was where planning acknowledged the existing legal non-conforming status of both the use and the structures on the site. Next slide, please. The planning department recommends approval of this application, subject to the conditions found in Exhibit A. And I leave this in your hands, Mr. Chair.
Great, thanks very much for that. So at this point, I'd like to call on the applicant or the agent to identify yourself by name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jagdeep Walia. I'm here and I cannot start the video.
Okay, that's fine. Is there anything further you wish to add to the application?
No, I don't want to add anything. And thank you, Lindsay. That was a wonderful job done.
Yeah, and that it was. Okay, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or for staff? And I'm seeing none, so I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have anybody with us today who wishes to speak to the application for 3441 Princess Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And is anybody with us this evening wishing to speak to the application for 3441 Princess Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. My third and final call, 3441 Princess Street. Does anybody wish to speak to that application? Please raise your virtual hand. And seeing none, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the committee for a motion. So moved by Greg and seconded by Vincent. Any discussion? So none, all in favor, raise your physical hand. And that's unanimously carried with the exception of Somnath, who bowed out. So thanks very much. All right, and it looks like we're on to our last item on the agenda, which is number 8J, which is an application for consent. Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Mr. Chair, if I could just quickly interrupt with the addendum,
Yes.
The acceptance of the addendum put the report on the addendum for consideration before the application as J. So the
yes.
technical order is business item K, which is the supplemental report.
Thank you. So my slide, just disregard my slide. So yes, so the next item is number K, which is the application for consent. So Lindsay, can I have you read this into the record, please?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our last application tonight is for consent at 3028 Princess Street. The file number is D10-034-2021, and the city planner assigned to this application is Ian Clendenning.
Okay.
All right. Good evening, Chair and members of the committee, and for all those members of the public watching. My name is Ian Clendenning, and I'll be presenting the staff's recommendation regarding approval for a proposed consent to create one severed and one retained lot for the property at 3026 Princess Street. I'd like to start by thanking both the Secretary Treasurer and the Clerk's Department for facilitating the inclusion of the addendum to this report and ensuring its availability to the public online. The subject property is designated residential in the city's official plan and is located within the urban boundary set out in Schedule 2 of the official plan. The property is zoned residential type 1. If we could go to the next slide, please. The consent applications proceeded through the delegated authority process. The city received 2 public comments during the public notification period, and therefore the file is being referred to the Committee of Adjustment for consideration. A new public notice was mailed to all property owners within a 60-meter radius of the property, and new signage was posted onto the site. I would also like to take this opportunity to highlight that the subject property was previously approved for a severance of the rear portion of the property for addition to the abutting lands to the west, located at 950 to 956 Woodhaven Drive. On May 17th, 2021, there was an application to amend that prior application's conditions in order to allow the dwelling on the property to remain, provided it was connected to municipal services, being the wastewater, which was subsequently approved, and that effectively allowed an extra year to fulfill the conditions of that consent for the lot addition. I only highlight that because that is an ongoing application, which the applicant, I understand, is still trying to fulfill those conditions and would not expire until May 17th of 2022. If we could go to the next slide, please. The subject property is located about 55 meters east of Woodhaven Drive and about 860 meters west of Bay Ridge Drive. The current application intends to create two roughly equal sized lots measuring 476 and 525 meters in area and having 15.24 meters of frontage on Princess Street. The rear lot lines would align with the existing parcels to the east and west. I can pause here though to highlight the impact, to address the impact more specifically of the prior consent should it not proceed. Reference in the report does indicate that in the event that that consent did not proceed, the previously severed lands would remain with the retained lands of the current application, resulting in what I describe as a bulb out in that report. The further correspondence received since the publication of the initial report did highlight that this would perhaps have a negative impact. I want to start by saying that it is fully my understanding that the applicant intends to fulfill the conditions of that initial consent. In the event that it doesn't, the impact would have a small or roughly 50 foot or 15.2 meter bulb out, where it would then carry on to the rear of the property, the full 30 meter width of the existing frontage, but to the rear of the severed parcel, not unlike what you see on properties to the east. We'll be able to see that in a later slide. So if we could go to the next slide, please. So here we see the slide of the proposed severed and retained parcel, each having roughly 15.2 meters of frontage and carrying the projection of the rear lot lines of the properties adjacent. The development is in compliance with the residential type 1 zoning in which the property is situated. If we could go to the next slide, please. This again is just highlighting the prior consent for this committee's understanding, if they're not already familiar with it. The rear lands, broad swath measuring just less than 3,000 square meters, is being added to the abutting parcel for a broader development that is not anticipated to be part of this application, which the prior slide shows is two dwelling units fronting onto Princess Street. So with that, I'd like to go to the next slide. Highlighting here the public consultation. On initial posting of the property and subsequent mail out, we did receive one piece of general objection as well as a more elaborate correspondence indicating a variety of concerns which are generally addressed in the report. Some of those issues are with respect to storm drainage, flood setback, and developability, the lot frontages being inconsistent, and we did receive, of course, further correspondence going into further detail. And I would like to take the opportunity to highlight that correspondence did highlight two mistakes set out in the report. One that incorrectly identified that Princess Street at that location is serviced by Express Transit, when in fact the existing number 502 bus service, which traverses Princess Street, terminates or turns off of at Bay Ridge Drive roughly 870 meters east of the site. And mistakenly, the report incorrectly references the severed lands as the retained and vice versa. I want to highlight that while the official plan does direct growth to areas serviced by existing infrastructure, including bus service, and sets out policy to support and promote transit use, it is recognized that not all development will take place in such areas. The subject lands are located within the urban boundary, and the redevelopment of the site would be on full municipal water and wastewater services. The services available are adequate for the proposed minor intensification. I want to highlight that subsequent to the further correspondence, staff engaged further with the CRCA, or Cataraqui Region Conservation Authority, that set out additional conditions that are laid out in the revised, in the Addendum Report. I'll be going over those in 1 second. If we could go to the next slide. Given concerns about the parcel fabric being proposed and the inconsistencies with the surrounding neighborhood, I did take the time to develop this slide in front of you. The report indicates that the 15.2 meters frontage is consistent with the area. And as illustrated in the slide before you, while it is slightly smaller than the residential zoned lots in the immediate area, the deviation is in the range of 2 to 6 meters from the areas selected for highlighting, which range from 21.5 meter average for the areas shown to 17.6. Again, this lot would have a shared mutual driveway, whereas the lots illustrated here are each serviced individually with driveways in general. This mitigates the visual impact of the two lots, as well as reduce any potential traffic conflicts. The 15.2 meter frontage is permitted under the existing zoning of the zoning bylaw. If we could go to the next slide, please. Here we have an illustration of the site of the subject property, which is the white house you can see generally centered to the left. The water course is marked, that I'll be discussing in a moment, is marked by the telephone pole closest the left-hand side of the image. I'll be showing a closer image of that, but I want to just highlight its location in the context of the surrounding area, as well as use this opportunity to give an illustration of the existing road network and streetscape. So if we could change to the next slide, please. One of the concerns identified in the correspondence that we received was that the water course and specifically the floodplain would preclude the development with the given a setback of 25 feet from the floodplain. This is a requirement of the zoning bylaw. Now, while detailed mapping has not been done, and that is a component of CRCA's conditions, is a hydrologic and hydraulic analysis that would delineate the floodplain of that water body, as well as identify any remediation or mitigation measures such as balance, cut, fill, or other engineering methods that would address the hazard if possible. I want to take this opportunity, however, to highlight to this committee that the floodplain means the area below the high water mark of a water body, or in the case of lands, etc. But a water body means a bay, lake, natural water course, or canal, but excluding a drainage or irrigation channel. And staff have reviewed the photos of the site submitted previously and a visual analysis from aerial photography. And it really looks like this is just a drainage channel and not a water body as defined in the zoning bylaw, which would trigger the 25-foot setback. If we could go to the next slide, please. Okay. Throughout the circulation process, staff circulate a variety of internal and external agencies. the circulation for which has identified a variety of studies that would be required to make for prudent development of the site. This includes a request for a noise study to demonstrate compliance with standard codes of NPC 300 by the province. Engineering recommends that the driveway be in a shared easement. This was concerned by the applicant that it was the original intent to do that. This allows for a greater width for entry and exit without trespass onto the abutting property, and again, minimizes the interface with the street for lessening of the visual impact of the streetscape. Additional requirements is that changes to grading and or drainage shall not adversely affect the neighboring properties. And of course, this would be demonstrated through studies. A stormwater management brief is also required, demonstrating pre to post water quantity controls for the 2 to 100-year storm events and normal level quality controls. As highlighted earlier in regards to the possible flood risk, there is a requirement for hydraulic analysis. There is further a modified condition set out in the Addendum Report where we are asking that the dwelling be removed. Now, of course, this was expected, but this being included in the conditions reinforces the actual requirement that it be done. And the conditions and the studies are all tied with a site development agreement such that they are not just stacks of paper. I know the correspondence does ask for notice of future participation opportunities, and through the standard site plan process, we would be posting on the site, and that is an opportunity for further comment and engagement. If we could go to the next slide, please. Finally, as included in the planning report, it is staff's recommendation that the committee approve the application for consent. The proposed severance is consistent with the provincial policy statement, the official plan, and complies with the zoning bylaw. Further, subdivision control is not necessary for the proposed severance. As referenced above, approval is recommended to be subject to the conditions set out in the revised Exhibit A. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for that, Ian. So at this point, can I please call on the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address, please?
Mr. Chair, as a matter of procedure, before we get into the other aspects, it would be cleaner to deal with the report on the addendum, which simply requests the swapping of the exhibit for the conditions, and then consider the report as a whole with the new conditions.
Okay.
Oh, my utmost apologies for confusing the two items. So the addendum report was triggered by further analysis and review and consultation with the CRCA. You'll find that 2 new conditions are recommended for consideration. One is the hydrologic and hydraulic analysis, the demolition permit, and that those be tied in through a site development agreement. The previous report did have an exhibit with a site development agreement, but the findings and recommendations of the hydraulic analysis is now included in that as a component. Okay. This is, while this is typically a condition of CRCA's permitting process for areas adjacent to a watercourse as defined by their legislation, this provides greater certainty for the planning process as well as knowledge for the applicant in terms of what's the expected level. And of course, the demolition of the existing dwelling ensures compliance with the zoning bylaw and does not have a house straddling a lot line.
Good. Okay. Thanks for that, Derek, and thanks, Ian, for that clarification. So everybody's aware that the addendum includes the 2 new conditions. Okay, so I was just asking for.
I'm sorry to jump in again, Mr. Chair. Technically, the committee with that addendum report, there is a motion that needs to be moved, seconded, and voted upon to insert into the main report, item J, the amended Exhibit A of conditions. So I would recommend, if the committee's comfortable with that, before debating the substantive nature of the report, jumping into and deciding whether or not to include those amended conditions.
All right, so why don't we do that at this point before we move any further? Okay, so can I call for a motion? So moved by Somnath and seconded by Vincent to insert item J with the amended conditions. Any discussion? So all in favor, raise your hands. And that would be carried. So all right, it's carried with one in the dissent. Oh, sorry, opposed? Rather, okay, so one opposed.
Thank you, Peter, for dealing with that. So now you can get into the normal procedure now that the new exhibit has been swapped.
Okay, thanks very much. All right, so I'll call for the applicant or their agent to identify yourself by name and address.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Chair. My name again is Yuko Leclerc. I'm a planner with FOTEN Planning and Design. I am appearing this evening on behalf of the applicant. The applicant is not in the Zoom call, but is watching along on YouTube.
Very good, thanks very much. And do you have anything further to add to the application?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've reviewed the recommendations from staff and the addendum. I've reviewed the public comments. I have nothing further to add to the staff recommendation or report, but I know there were a lot of comments made, and I'm available, of course, to help us answer any questions or comments. I can also provide a little bit of background on this particular file. There has been a lot that's gone on over time. There was a zoning amendment application that was applied for and withdrawn. So if there's any questions about all of that, I can help answer those as well. Thank you.
Great, thanks for that. Okay, committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant or the agent or for staff? And none? So seeing none, I'll open the public portion of the meeting. Do we have any members of the public with us this evening who wish to speak to the application for 3028 Princess Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. So I do see one in the gallery, and so that would be Mr. LaRue, Harold LaRue. So we recognize you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Harold LaRue. I live at 948 Kenshaw Street. I own the property. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you fine.
Yeah. I own the property immediately west to the subject property.
Very good.
I have lots of questions.
Now, we have received your letter. All committee members did receive a letter in the addendum today. Were you going to raise issues in addition to that?
I just want to highlight something that was said. The stormwater management and floodplain analysis. These things have been known for a long time, and for some reason were not included in the pre-application requirement to be submitted with the application. Instead, they're left as conditions to be satisfied after you guys make a decision. So I think you need to know what's in these reports before you can make a decision. They shouldn't be left till the end of it. And plus, we don't have a chance to comment on these things. These were known issues, should have been included with the application. I also have, I also have a number of procedural issues. First of all, I want to just start off by giving some context. Section 1.0.1, and I'm no expert in the Planning Act, I'm just reading it, says information and material that is required to be provided to the municipality or approval authority under the Act shall be made available to the public. So I understand Mr. Leclerc, is he an agent, an applicant, or co-applicant? Because under the official plan, under 9.12.2 of the official plan, it says that the owner's authorization and consent to apply for the planning approval and the identification of the agent for the applicant with written authorization should be included with the application. There is nothing in dash that I could see around this.
Okay.
Second thing is, there's supposed to be a pre-application meeting. And the city requires written confirmation of pre-consultation with the municipality be provided with the application under the official plan. I see nothing for this in dash. Next, the notice of technical consent, the very notice that we receive as the public, it states that the application can be viewed online by visiting the Development and Services Hub. Well, if you go there, you see nothing called an application. There is no document. I finally got the document from the city planner, and it is also missing in dash. I requested the minutes for the pre-application meeting to see if these studies that I just talked about were going to be provided, should have been provided with the application. I requested this and was told by the city planner that these were confidential. Well, this is not what the city website says. It states, proposals discussed at the pre-application are confidential until a formal application is submitted. I asked for this last week and was denied access to it.
Okay.
I got more here. The floodplain analysis we've gone into. I just want to say that there is a ditch that runs along my property and along this subject property to the west of this subject property that has been the topic of the CRCA submissions. And the Planning Act under Ontario Regulation 197 and the official plan says that this ditch must be shown on a sketch, drainage ditches. I don't see any drainage ditches on the sketches that were provided. And obviously this is a concern to me, this whole business of the ditches. I think frankly, I never sought legal advice, but my property drains into that ditch and has done so forever, before I owned it, even 32 years ago. I probably have a prescriptive easement for it. And so anyhow.
All right.
Let me just carry on here.
Yep.
I have to read my million notes that I've written.
Sure.
Okay.
You've got two more minutes, Mr. LaRue.
Is that all, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, so for technical reviews, the CRCA submissions that we've talked about here, none of these are in dash. How are we supposed to read them? They're not in dash. Finally, the planner sent me these things after I told them I had received them by contacting the CRCA myself. I think that's unacceptable, frankly. And now there's a whole business of the lot. I've gone into that in my submission, but there's also the easement associated with the driveway. They're saying, let me just see what I've got here. I'm rushed, so I'm not thinking so well. So the easement. Okay, I'm going to start in the back, next previous page. So I got here, it appears the approval of this consent would be based on the assumption of shared driveway as a condition of approval. But according to the report to the COA, you guys, that that condition requires that prior to the issuance of the certificate of official for these lots, that an applicant have registered upon each of the severed lots and retained lots an easement. But to get an easement, don't you need a certificate of official to say you have title of the land? So it looks like there's a catch-22 situation here, or a vicious circle. You can't grant a consent for the severed lot until there is an easement for the driveway, and you can't have an easement until the consent is granted. And then there's nothing that says like a consent is granted, but it's granted in relation to a transaction. Maybe there is, maybe it's a transfer or a conveyance or whatever, but there's nothing in the documents that says what it is that I could see.
Okay,
I've
so
asked this-
30 more seconds, Mr. LaRue.
I think that's it. I've gone
Okay.
through as fast as I can.
Okay.
So you have what I have.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much for that. Okay, I'll call on other members. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak to the application for 3028 Princess Street? Raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And I'll call one final time for public comments. Is there anybody wishing to speak to the application for 3028 Princess Street? Please raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And I'm not seeing any. So I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting and come back to the applicant's agent and staff to address some of these additional concerns raised by members of the public. So Mr. Leclerc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. LaRue for coming out this evening and making those comments.
Sure.
Mr. Chair, the comments generally seem to deal with process. I think material to be made available to the public, identification of the agent, minutes of the pre-application process, documents being made available in Dash. And with respect to the ditch, the Conservation Authority has provided comment regarding their position around that ditch and their requirements. There is also comments that have been made available through the technical review with city engineering staff, I think, which broadly echo the CRCA with the further condition and requirement that there not be any negative impact on adjacent properties as part of the site grading on the property. Okay. With respect to the driveway easement, the consent that's being sought this evening would allow the creation of the new lot as well as the mutual easements between the two properties for the consent. So the idea is for this committee ideally to approve the package, recognizing that the mutual access, the shared driveway is part and parcel of the consent application itself. And with respect to the transaction, I believe Mr. Barr covered that off earlier. Certainly at the culmination of a consent application, when the lot is registered, there is a transfer in title of the severed land to a new owner, which satisfies those requirements under the Act. And there's the principle as discussed of once a consent, always a consent. So it can be transferred to the same person on title as the person that initiates the application. At this point in time, I can say that I'm not sure who the property will be transferred to. It'll be the owner, I suspect, but it's not particularly germane to the consent process itself. So with that, if there's any further questions, I'm happy to answer those, but I'd like to sort of defer to Mr. Clendenning on those other items.
Okay, Ian, can you add to this and address some of these additional concerns by the members of the public?
Absolutely. I'll try and address some of those issues. Now, I think Yuko did a good job explaining about the no negative impact to the water course and abutting properties. The prescriptive rights question, I'd really recommend that individual essentially identify their prescriptive rights over land through the proper legal channels, and whether it's just a drainage right under the Drainage Act, or whether it's through rights over the land through continued basically access. I don't see any structure which prescriptive rights would apply to. In terms of the drainage, I don't think that's at any question that that individual would have the continued right to drainage in the quantity that it has historically happened. And that's really what the current applicant is asking to demonstrate, that the existing water that's going into that water channel is not negatively impacting downstream owners, as well as the capacity in which that stream kind of facilitates to downstream, right? I think that might be what they're addressing when they're speaking of their prescriptive rights to discharge water into that water course. The stormwater management plan for this property is going to have to demonstrate that pre-development flows match with post-development flows. And again, hitting on that, the engineer will have to confirm that there is not a negative impact.
Okay.
In regards to access to information, we use a digital system called Dash. I did print off the Dash application, and I did circulate that to the individual upon request. As you can imagine, the Dash and information that relates to an application can sometimes be a lot of memos, notes, documents, and not all of that is public facing, partly for sheer depth of information, but absolutely on request, as per the Planning Act, it is available for inspection. I'm not sure what the city's process has been traditionally in a pre-COVID world, with digitalization of documents and sharing electronic stuff, we certainly can try and accommodate. In this situation, it was provided online. In some cases, available for inspection is just having the document available at the office for somebody to look at. There are, from my knowledge of other applications relevant to this area, prior applications which did involve stormwater management plan for a different proposal. Whether this specific individual wishes to go ahead with that specific plan is up to them, really, because what they had submitted for contemplating another development application, which I can't attest to what their plan is, but that information would be forthcoming with the application as it proceeds. I think that the key here is that right now it's at a land use planning question whether the lot fabric and the severance is appropriate for the area and consistent with provincial policy. Some of those elements can be further researched, and that's the benefit of having the conditions to basically say, yes, this could be approved. Now you can go ahead and put some effort into researching it and execute how, which is the minutia of detail.
Okay, thanks for that. Somnath, I see you have your hand raised.
Yes, unmuting myself here. Yes, my question was really again procedural. My understanding is that we are being asked for a consent to sever, and I think the question about easement for the common driveway would be subject to another consent, which would be subsequent to this consent. So I just wanted to expose that in my understanding that there are two consents we're talking about here, aren't we? One buried inside the other.
Well, can we actually just get clarification on that? I just would sort of add to that if I can go on the back end of that. Is it with a shared driveway, is it just a driveway with no boundary? That the driveway is contained on each lot fabric, but it's paved over with no line demarcation down the middle? I don't know. Can you comment on that, Mr. Leclerc?
Oh, thank you. Yes, Mr. Chair. The idea is that the shared driveway would be limited to the dimension as shown on the concept plan of the driveway itself. So it wouldn't extend beyond that, save at the rear, to allow vehicles to sort of maneuver a little bit. So it would provide a little bit of room for vehicles to turn around in that parking area behind the dwellings. And that would be further, again, determined and detailed out through the conditions of through satisfying conditions of consent for that easement.
Okay, all right. And James, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I can build off that and then just talk about some of the other procedural issues that were raised. Mr. Leclerc was correct in identifying that once a consent, always a consent is a process under the Planning Act. Consents are incredibly technical, and you can do a lot with a consent when you have an application open for a property where you can modify the size of the property, the legal address, and other aspects associated with it, including the registration of easements. And how it works is essentially tonight we're approving, if it gets approved, the consent in principle, and there is a number of criteria that the application has to satisfy in order for the consent to become real and actual and registered at the Land Registry Office. If an applicant is unable to obtain all of the required approvals within 1 year, it's as though the consent never happens. The application closes, it lapses, and the property remains as is. So every single criteria through the amended conditions, all 13 of them, I believe, including a development agreement, have to be met within the 1 year time frame, including the creation of an easement. Now, there are two types of easements we can look at creating when we have something open: a blanket easement, which covers both properties, or a defined easement. And what the city will be looking for here is a defined easement that's over top of the two driveways. In order to have and legally registered on title, the ability for both of these property owners to use, in part, each other's properties in order to have a consolidated driveway. And that consolidated driveway has been reviewed by Transportation Services, and they are satisfied that the driveway will have no negative impact on the transportation network here on Outer Princess Street, which is why this application has come forward proposed with a combined driveway. How this all comes together is before the issuance of a certificate of official, lawyers have to put together what is called a draft transfer. And that's the document that begins to unpack each of the properties and legally say what's associated with each. It's its new legal address, it's its transferor to a transferee, so who this land will be transferred to, as well as any sort of associated registrants on the title of the land, like an easement. So all of that gets dealt with and draft prepared before the certificate of official is issued. So that's how those pieces fit together in order to be able to capture those elements prior to the issuance of a certificate of official. In addition to that, the development agreement is registered on the title of land prior to the issuance of the certificate of official. So any future owner and person building on that property is bound by the stipulation of that agreement. So that's how all those pieces fit together. So we won't be looking at a second consent application because we have this open. And through the condition of this consent, we can actually create the easements to make these properties function as proposed.
Okay.
Looking back to some of the procedural items that were raised, we tend to work with, we city staff tend to work with applicants, especially when it involves multiple properties, quite consistently. And this applicant has gone through many iterations, including several other applications. We do have all of the required submission materials as per our pre-app process in order to be able to process these applications, including owner's authorization through previous applications and our continued discussions with both FOTEN and the owners. The owners have authorized FOTEN planning and designing consultants to submit applications on their behalf. So staff are satisfied that there is a proper authority in place for these applications to proceed. And regarding the pre-application and consultation process, Mr. Leroux was right, and he notes that the development review process online information page for the city contains an item at the very end of pre-app that says proposals discussed at pre-app are confidential until a formal application is submitted. And what that really means is we don't even talk about or reference if someone has submitted pre-app on a property, because that is a confidential process. And even just talking about whether or not someone has submitted pre-application on a property could bias land or an application. So that is confidential until the time of an application to understand whether or not someone's done that. Because with the way our pre-application bylaw is written, you are required to pre-consult with the city prior to the submission of an application. So once someone submits an application, we can confirm they have gone through pre-app and have received their list of requirements that need to be submitted in order to support an application. But the real meat and potatoes of pre-application, the actual proposals that are within them, still remain confidential, even through general land tribunal processes. So it's really an unbiased place where applicants can have those discussions with city staff to form the basis of an application and receive direct comments back on what is required. Okay. I don't think I've missed anything else at this point, but just looking through Dash, we do have everything posted there for the applications. Dash can be confusing, so if you're ever on a Dash record Under record details, which is publicly posted, if you scroll to the bottom, there's a little chevron that says more details. If you click on that, it gives you the entire submitted application that someone has filled out in order to be able to complete their record, including all the nitty gritty details about lot depth, lot width, existing buildings, structure height. On the back side of Dash, once an application submitted, it makes a PDF copy of that. We don't generally post that because all of the other submission details are there through the Dash record. But that is something I can talk with our team about if we want to make publicly available, should there still be difficulty locating the more detailed aspect of a record.
Okay, thanks. Good. All right, and Greg, you had your hand up first.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say that's the first time over the entire year that I've heard someone say they've had an issue accessing an application or documents on Dash. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. All right, and Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The new condition that staff put on the report tonight concerning the hydraulic and hydro analysis for this report, I'm just wondering how long that would take and to do that type of work, and why could that not come back to the committee with a whole package such that the public could see at least the executive summary of that analysis before we make a decision? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair, the hydraulic and hydrologic, and I think I suffered through that a couple of times through the report. So thanks for entertaining me. I did discuss that with our members, with our partners at CRCA, partly just to get an understanding whether they would be comfortable allowing it as a condition as opposed to saying it's a prerequisite. And it's really, I don't think timing wise, it takes too much time. Certainly the indications from Mike at the CRCA was that, he's comfortable. It would be something that could be produced within that 1 year time frame. Of course, I think I could have sympathies for an applicant where they're tasked with, okay, the minimum amount of studies required to satisfy that this could happen from a land use planning perspective, where, for other reasons, for compatibility with the character of area, might shoot that application down in a hypothetical situation. So you have thousands and thousands of dollars of studies, and all for lack of compatibility for some other thing that wasn't. And I'm just using that as an example. So it's really a way of managing risk. And again, those studies are required to demonstrate no negative impact in most of their cases, or in the case of the noise study, those would be very definitive in terms of, okay, you'll have to add glazing to the windows, other requirements that mitigate that impact. And really, it would just show the path and the cost in which to make it happen. And at that point, taking, for example, like glazed windows, they could say, okay, our financials don't work out and we just can't make this happen in accordance with the requirements of that NPC 300. And then the consent would lapse, unfortunately, or they satisfy those criteria. I hope that satisfies the reasons, but with conversation with CRCA, there wasn't an indication that would be an issue getting that report or that analysis together within that 1 year time frame.
Greg, or sorry, Paul, did you want to follow up, or are you okay? Okay, I might circle back around to that, Ian. Greg, you had something to add?
Through you, Mr. Chair, those assessments, just a question for staff, for those CRCA assessments, would they have to be paid for by the owner? Would the owner have to pay for those assessments to be done?
That is correct.
So you can correct me if I'm wrong. If I was the owner of this property, why would I pay for assessments to be done if I wasn't going to get consent to have this done in the first place? So if I don't have consent to do any of the work, why would I be paying for consents beforehand? Like maybe I'm missing something here, but it seems logical to me that they would come to us for consent. If we granted consent, then it's worthwhile to pay money for assessments for something that you're going to be able to do. But if you're not going to be able to do it, why would someone fork out thousands of dollars to have assessments done where it didn't matter what they said in the first place? Am I missing something?
Through the chair, no, that is exactly the logic and the decision point that applicants have to make is, are you going to front end the cost of those studies so that you know exactly what will be required, or go on a faith that you'll just have to engineer your way out of a problem? And I'm loath to say the adage about give an engineer enough money and they can make, water run uphill or something. That no, it's managing the risk of front-ending those studies. I just want to highlight that. And then the detail of how it gets executed is really what those studies would show. And then we tie that to a development agreement.
Okay, that's where I was going to circle back around to, and you kind of have summed that up as well, that the obtention of the stormwater report isn't something we necessarily need to see as a condition of approving this. Rather, if it's approved in principle and the applicant either cannot or does not want to satisfy the any remediation where stormwater is concerned, then it just lapses. Okay, all right. Any other questions of either the applicant or staff? I don't see any. I do see one person in the public gallery with their hand raised, but I have closed the public portion of the meeting. And now I'm going to come back to the committee and ask for a motion. So moved by Greg and seconded by Somnath. Any discussion? No discussion. So all in favor of the application, raise your physical hand. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and opposed? 1 opposed. Okay. So that was carried. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 in the opposed. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks. All right. So, all right, moving on our agenda, item number 10, we have no motions. There are no notices of motions. We have no other business to discuss, and there is no correspondence. The date of the next meeting is all the way next year, January the 17th at 5:30 p.m. So the only thing we need now is a motion to adjourn. So moved by Vincent and seconded by Somnath. And all in favor, raise your hands. That's unanimously carried. Meeting adjourned at 7:32 p.m. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great holiday.